Welcome acolytes, today I am reacting to J Senpai X4. Of course, he got recommended from Agent of Social Media Chaos. As always, only the best of the best from this man. Let's just see what this man has to say about this. About this video, anyway, it's such a bad translation, monopolizing. Why aren't they talking about this around? So I'm just gonna react to this. Let's see how this goes, because as always my reactions just aren't pre-watched, or I even try to add something. I think I can add something to this, and presumably I wanted to release it on Saturday, but hey, it's quicker, so be happy, mate. And yeah, if you like my content, leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, that's all. Show me and J Senpai some love. And I actually didn't realize that I reached the 500. I didn't expect to reach it this year. So, acolytes, I will devour your souls. Thank you. Perfect. Let's just start this.
Of anime and manga stuff. Yeah, but I have not heard about MasterCard and Visa censoring anime. Oh yeah, basically the West, mainly America,
By the way, he plays Black Knight Wukong if you didn't see it.
is forcing Japan to censor anime and manga more. I don't know how much I believe that, honestly. Basically, MasterCard and Visa are not vibing with Japan's anime and manga industry, and they cut it off. Were they sponsors before? They forced the creator of Love Hina to shut down the Manga Dojin website because they forced the payments to shut down. Oh shit! Places like DL sites don't allow Visa and MasterCard anymore. Is it anime and manga, or is it adult content? Those are two different things. The weeb stuff in general. Depending on how much Japan cares about, depending on if it's stuff like DL site and adult sites and Dojin sites, I don't know how big the industry is abroad.
Yeah, believe you me, if it's a porn thing, it's gigantic. No matter what it is, it's gigantic. Way more than you expect.
Compared to the domestic one. Dojin's basically region locked in Japan now. Going back to the old days, huh? I mean, if corporations want to distance themselves from adult content, that's fair enough to the corporations. I'm gonna be the first to say that Japan, especially the adult content, it has some weird stuff here, man.
Nope, not paying. You cannot make the same call for, let's just say, BMW as for MasterCard. MasterCard just gives the money around. You pay MasterCard, MasterCard pays the money to the guy that you want to pay. They just give money. They don't sell a product. They just give money. And there wasn't any problem with that, by the way. Never heard that there is a problem with that. BMW, if they don't want to get associated with someone, that's totally different. They sell a product.
Has some weird stuff that I am not surprised that corporations don't want to be involved with. Look, if there's one thing I understand about Japan, is that not only with adult stuff, you can find niches for anything. You can find girls' bars for anything. You can find themed bars, themed services for anything in Japan. So I believe that Japan will find a way. The world may try to censor Japan, but Japan ain't gonna allow that. Japan will find a way, man.
Man, clips like these are the worst type of clips. I ain't gonna necessarily lie. I don't know who or what I should be more disappointed in. The fact that the censorship stuff is happening, and you know, there's really not really any sort of force that can change it as far as I'm aware of or I know, or the fact that they didn't know anything about what was going on when it comes down to it, which
I'm gonna make it easy to you, mate. You should be disappointed in the fact that shit gets censored all the time. An individual won't change that for F's sake. Just because somebody doesn't know it is irrelevant. People cannot know everything that's going on in the world. I also, if my acolyte didn't actually show me this stuff, I wouldn't know it. Now I know, and I'm doing a lot of videos about it. But I wouldn't know it, and I am against this censorship fully. And as I said, just because an individual doesn't know it, irrelevant. That it happens. That's the worst point.
I don't know. I feel a bit more shame on that side. So, when it comes down to it, let's just keep this very much a stack. We already know about the censorship that's happening in anime and things of the sort like that. And it's not obviously just adult stuff as well. It's just anime as a whole because this shit been going into mangas. This has been happening to, anime in the studios as we have seen plenty of times before, especially with Crunchyroll and things and stuff like that. They might deny it, but we know it's true. Then there's like plenty of, light novels that could potentially be hits or probably has been hit that we don't necessarily know about, possibly. And it's just like a continuous circle of stuff like that. Games over in Japan been hit with this, especially with Dragon Quest and the whole pixel remake version of like Dragon Quest 3 or whatever. And essentially you had the whole people back behind the scenes, the creator of Dragon
Yeah, the Dragon Quest thing just disappointed me gigantically, but okay.
Quest be like, who's asking for these changes and all that type of stuff.
Stop asking yourself of asking for these changes. Nobody asks for these changes. No normal human being asks for this. There are only freaks that ask for this. That's all.
So I find it completely baffling how someone has not heard about this stuff while in the country, much less in the circles that you're in. I find that a little weird, right? And that's my big fat thing of what drives me up a wall probably the most, right? Like we talked about this whole MasterCard and Visa thing before about how anime is getting censored because of those people not necessarily wanting to, let them do business. And
No. For them, those people that you are talking about, and I also hate that word because it's overused, the woke crowd, they're just racist. You can say to me what you want. They are just racist pieces of shit. And I had to do enough with racism. I live in fucking Bavaria. This is the most racist part of Germany. I know what fucking racism is. And if I see racism, I can point to it and say, yes, you can believe me. And they are just racist against white and Asian people. That's all there is to it. And Jewish.
And all that type of stuff. So we've already talked about that before, but one of the points I had in it, especially on a side point, I would say a pretty big one, is that the only people that is talking about this type of stuff is mainly people that is outside of the space or mid-tier, like, I won't say mid-tier, I don't want to call them mid-tier because that might sound like, oh, they're not necessarily good content creators. Not that. It's just that they don't have the sizable audience that, that's like way bigger and stuff, right? But it's like the only people that are talking about it is like the middle ground type anime YouTubers like Chibi Reviews, sometimes Rev, and other people like that. And then you got like the only other person I can think of really that's at the top of stuff is like Asmongold, because he been talking about this a fair decent amount when stuff has to be brought up. Like he was pretty much the only bigger content creator to kind of bring up, hey, translations in anime is not necessarily that great after, seeing Rev's whole take about it. And then when it comes down to the whole censorship of the MasterCard and Visas, he was again the only person to really bring it up. And now when we have an actual anime YouTuber to come through to talk about this stuff, they don't care that deep. It's not necessarily that big of a concern.
But for fuck's sake, I don't know the person, to be honest, that was started at the start, that was talking about that. I always try to assume the most realistic point of view of that person, and what I see as most realistic is that he got this information from his chat. If you know chats, especially Twitch chats, sometimes they are a bit unhinged. You shouldn't instantly believe anything the chat says. What he should do from this point on is inform himself, because this stuff, if he is an anime YouTuber, it will influence him to a gigantic degree. Negatively influence him to a gigantic degree. And he should take a look at it. But if this was me, I am trying to build up a community that's with as many of normal people as I can. And I don't mean that you cannot be a furry, a lolicon, an anime fan, a freaking history nerd. I'm not saying this. Just behave like a normal human being. And you don't even know how many unhinged freaks you got in here. Even me. I am a small, non-interesting, like for most people, I just don't exist. And I still get some unhinged shit in my comments. That's why, and I think that if you have a Twitch chat where everybody is welcome, and you hear something like this, the first reaction should be, maybe this is just a freak that's going overboard. I really should treat that with caution. Now that said, I think that the anime guy that you were talking about, just give him the information in a normal way. Just talk to him, and he'll probably cover it.
Am I tripping? Like, I feel like I'm the one that's a bit tripping here. Am I not? Or is this how everybody basically feels? Like, this is just outlandish, honestly.
No. Everybody feels bad about this. Like, most normal people think that this is total censorship and they don't want it.
This is the very same field that helped build up a lot of these people's careers, and it's like,
Yep.
Nothing matter? It doesn't really matter to a high-ass scale? It feels weird as shit. I'm not gonna lie. Am I expecting everybody to know everything of what's going on? Of course not. Especially when it comes down to, what different countries are doing domestically and all that type of stuff. Of course. But at the very same time, if it's a part of the field that I'm a part of, and it's something that obviously I care greatly about, much less build a career on, I'm gonna care when stuff actually happens that could threaten things, right? Like, this is no different from basically how DEI entered the whole gaming space, right? Because when it first entered, no one cared. No one paid attention to the signs of what was happening and things of sort like that. But then when it started to actually get to this point of the 2020s where we're seeing all this kind of stuff now, now everybody's mad. But we should have been mad the first dang time. The warning shot was Senran Kagura, the game with ninja chicks and big old biddies and all that stuff jiggling about. Right, you might not necessarily care for that stuff, but that was a whole warning shot. You just didn't realize it. And when it comes down to it, that warning shot led into like a lot of other things happening and removal of a lot of other things. And barely now we're trying to make a comeback in some shape and form. And it's so whack. It's so whack. Honestly, even 3 years ago, I would argue that we were still having some stuff, maybe not a whole bunch that was accepted, but some stuff, like interspecies review all of a sudden, that was a fire show. But at the very same time, it's like that junk kind of wouldn't be made now, or it's like it's more difficult to bring something like that out now. And hell, they tried to, and
yeah, I'm going to be honest. Right now, the pendulum swings back, so it gets easier and easier to talk about this stuff and get it out. Right now, you're actually way more open to criticize this than you were 3 years ago, or hell, 10 years ago. For fuck's sake, if you're old enough, that shit show. But you're not entirely incorrect about the entire.
Pretty much did kill, the English side of it, because they, kind of just ruined the hell out of the licenses when it comes down to episode 3 and beyond, So it's not necessarily great. It just goes to show you that this junk has been around for a while. Censoring anime has been for a while. And now they're just trying to get to their hands to the direct source of things. Trying to get their hands into the source of things right before it gets any type of release. That's wild to me. And then when it comes down to the whole topic of, well, there is a lot of weird stuff that happens in anime. Yes. But guess what? There's also a lot of weird stuff that happens in real life. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens in non-fiction shows. In shows where you have real life actors in it. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens in that, but we don't see any complaints on that side. It's only when we get to anime then, everything is a bit weird, and that's not how it works.
No, it depends where you're on. You only see it from this side because you're mainly in this community. I was in a lot of communities, not excluding, and Most people actually only see the stuff in their community. I mean, that makes sense because that's your community, that's what you are interested in. But in gaming, football, even like smaller communities of just being a Polish guy, those people or most people just see their community. That's all. And the things that you complain about, big gaming had this in shows. It just got deported from gaming to anime. It will come back to gaming at some point. So that's
right? It doesn't make sense. It's very stupid. And again, I don't see how you did not see any of this at all when this has literally been in a space for years upon years upon years. It's a bit wild to me. And this is why I can understand why so many people don't watch anime YouTubers anymore, right? I can very much understand it now because they claim to be a part of the whole industry or be a part of Japan and love the culture of Japan and stuff like that and appreciate anime and what it is. But at the very same time, when stuff like this happen and then you don't say anything about it, and then you wonder why people are being so mad and negative or just not necessarily understanding why people ain't on your side. There's a fair amount of reasons why. I can't explain every single thing about why people are negative and everything like that, right? But I can definitely tell you and express what I personally feel when it comes down to situations like this, especially these, because it's like when you see your favorite genre getting censored or basically getting axed in some shape and form, I'm not gonna lie, the reason why you have me reporting on some of the stuff a lot of the time is because I'm tired, because there is basically no one else that's really talking about this stuff for real, right? And there's not people getting the bigger picture of everything or how everything could potentially change. Even if there is a chance that, you know, something may not necessarily happen due to something going down, I still would rather talk about it just in case, because that's just how it is. For example, with the whole Sony and Kalakawa thing, there's been some more information about that and what the actual truth of the situation is. It's not Sony America that wanting to own it, it's more Sony Japan. And
by the way, about your argument, you still want to talk about this. A lot of people just want the information first before they actually act on it. I understand if somebody doesn't trust anything just because it got spit out somewhere. And I actually prefer it that way. But maybe it's... You could maybe mention it once or twice, but then you have situations like... And if you know, you know. The freaking... How is this little bastard called? The Taiga situation... with the other guy. Give me a second. Ah, got it. Noxtaku. Noxtaku mentioned something in, well, very bad without informing himself and just talked about it because Taiga presumably CP'd, like groomed and stuff like that. And he mentioned it in by going, like just mentioned it because it could be true. And look at the shit show that it actually just went through. Like, Taiga went through a long period of time of just suffering just because Noxtaku talked about something that he wasn't informed about. So yeah, just talking about things can have gigantic consequences you don't realize.
I would be perfectly fine with that if it wasn't for the fact Sony America sucks ass. They literally have all the voting power, all the power just to do whatever the hell they want to, and that's essentially how that goes. The only reason why we ain't seeing a revival of Concord right now is because of Sony Japan, which is great. So, you know, Japan knows what they're doing. It's when you add America to the mix, that's when things get bad, and it's just a frustrating circle, left to right and right to left. So again, this is the stuff that we have to constantly deal with, and it's again been something that's been going on for literal years at this point. And as we also discussed, you might be like, well, if they tone down some of the adult content or they get rid of some of the stuff that happens in anime too much, then that's perfectly fine. Sure, you might say that now, but then when it starts attacking the things that you like intense violence or, other types of things that also go into the spectrum of things that you care
Yep,
for and it can't be done now, then you're gonna start complaining about it. It's like, nope, this is basically the same thing with the Siren Kagura stuff. You should have been fighting for this day one. Why?
correct. I agree with him. It's not your problem until it's your problem, and then it's too late because the problem is too big.
Don't you just try to go and jump into it now instead of waiting till later until it starts affecting the things that you actually like? Like, no, that shouldn't be the case. Like, let's fight this shit together and just call it a day. Like, don't wait until stuff get on your doorstep and then it's a problem. Handle that shit before it gets to that point. And the fact that he has not heard anything about this until now is crazy to me. So I just going to assume pretty much anybody in their circle probably doesn't know what the heck is happening, or they're calling it BS, just like he was talking about, in the beginning of the clip. And it's just like, how? What is your how do you function? What is your circle actually like? Like, it has to be so one-sided of a circle. Like, I don't necessarily understand that, right? It just is baffling and confusing. And then it's like, oh, no wonder why, things get walked over and, things get shitted on equally hard when it comes down to it. Because it's just like, yeah, you have the whole power of influence as a top creator, especially within this field. You have a whole power to maybe change something. You have connections within the whole industry. You have something you can obviously do or bring attention to, and yet you choose not to use it. This is why I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish there was more newer people to come in that cared that much, to come through in some shape and form and then build them up to be bigger channels.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I also wish that this was different. That people would just think about the reactions or the steps that the entire thing is just taking, the direction it's going in, and would just act accordingly. But realistically, won't happen.
So we can actually get something going instead of just looking at the circle jerk, I guess, that is going on currently. Because this is absolute nonsense. If I was definitely up in that top level, best believe your boy is going to be trying to, bring some attention to this in a higher scope. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous that this is the case. You can't say you care for the anime industry or you care for anime or you care for the culture of everything if you just sit here, not know that, basically a whole nother country is trying to impede on the progress of that culture and anime that you so happen to like. Honestly, it's weird and it's not necessarily how that should work. And if you didn't know, well, now you know, and then go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, as I said, information gathering isn't always the same. Yeah, I already talked about it. I won't repeat this.
You know, I mean, and again, I know somebody might be like, oh, but, they're not necessarily forced to talk about it. You're right. They're not forced to, but they should. Like, they got everything else they can talk about, everything else they like to bring up to the table, right? If we can bring something like the whole Iron Mouse situation, which, no, she doesn't deserve to get bullied and harassed, but at the very same time, can you also talk about this damn thing? Like, I'm just going to keep it very much a stack.
Yep. By the way, it depends on the channel. If you have a reactionary channel like mine, you can just put out Schlop daily. If you have a highly informed channel, you can maybe put out stuff once a week. So yes, there is a certain time zone for stuff like this. It's not just as easy as you think. The entire thing just isn't one-sided. You really have to look at it from the perspective of different people. And as I repeat, I am talking about this shit since weeks, months. And yes, I am on your side that yes, people should, out of pure self-defense, talk about this. Out of pure self-conservation thing, talk about this. Because this will hunt and bite them at some point. That's just the reality of it. But most people, yeah.
And then when it comes down to people being like, my mental health, it's so negative. Well, why is everything so negative? Because we're tired of getting screwed.
Yep.
Literally, that's what this comes down to. At least for me personally, I'm tired of seeing the games I enjoy, the media I consume, the anime that I watch, getting threatened 5 million times over.
That's me.
Because somebody with a corporate ladder, somebody in a corporate office,
Because a freak. Let's be clear about this. Those are freaks. Call them freaks as they are.
somewhere holding up 2 damn credit cards, being like, you know what? I don't like that lolly right there. So banhammer and all that type of stuff. Like,
Yeah,
it's
that's-
so
yeah.
whack.
Yeah,
Why
it
is that the case? Why do we have to wait 5,000 years before somebody actually does something or say something about what's going on? There's a little bit of something of an attack, I guess, in the governmental space on MasterCard and Visa, just a little bit, but it's definitely not enough, right? And you can't just rely on Ken Akamatsu, to come through, try to preserve everything on his own and try to, take all the preservation of anime and things of the sort like that and try to fight it on his own, because he's just one person in the Japanese government. He's one dude. If we're not having like a shit ton of other people helping with that matter, then it's gonna be definitely hard to kind of, fight that junk. Not one person can just do everything. We need a whole group of people to come through and do
Yeah,
something,
you're
right?
correct about
So
that.
that's just how that
Fully.
is. And it's baffling again to me how none of the people, Anime Man, Connor, Giga, none of these people, any people that they know that's up the top, just talks about this, but they'll coast their success off of anime and just keep being like, yeah, this anime is going hard, man, or this manga right here is dope as hell, or I worked on this damn show, I voice acted this shit, and yet you let the industry also burn to the ground and let everybody else kind of just deal with that shit. That's so weird. And then again, when people get mad and then start being negative, you want to start getting mad about that? That's not how that works. And I know somebody could easily say, well, when it comes down to it, somebody else could probably talk about it. Yeah, they can, but guess what? They probably don't have the power. They probably don't have the influence and the people that, these 3 people have. So at the end of the day, you best believe they should definitely talk about it, and best believe people are going to try to, want to push them to say something about it, because, yeah, no one has the ability to do so. No one definitely has that type of industry power to do anything about it, but, the people you would think that's at the top, but then they don't do anything. Which I heard, or at least I read a comment where somebody was like, oh, maybe it could be like a whole defamation thing because Japan don't play about defamation and stuff like that. But it's not defamation if you're just criticizing. Like, you can criticize somebody without necessarily being like, oh, this company is ass, it sucks, all this type of stuff. You don't have to go about it like that. You could still criticize stuff. If that's just not possible over there, then, that's very sensitive of Japan. I ain't gonna necessarily lie. But still, nonetheless, you can criticize something without necessarily trying to jeopardize your whole reputation. You can. Like, I'm just gonna keep very much a sec. It's like when you have, like, people being like, super active and super hyped for voice actors, but then when you don't necessarily know the spectrum of how crazy and dark sometimes these voice actors can get at times, and then you just basically kind of run over that opinion or that fact, and essentially you just kind of be like super still for the voice actors and whatever. It's like, you can't necessarily just take one part of the truth and then not look at the other part too. Like, there's been some crappy shit voice actors has done, so we can't necessarily just sit here and be like, oh yes, voice actors are so good all the time. That's not
No.
that's not how it works.
No. Especially the freak side of the. No, voice actors did some shitty things. That's. Yeah.
It's never been how it works, right? That's just impossible. Like Chris Chan, for example, for whatever dumbass reason, he got somebody. How the hell is that possible? I have no idea. The man's an actual monster that went out their way to, violate their own mom and everything, essentially. But when it comes down to it, you basically have people just be like, funny meme man, or all that type of stuff. It's a little weird. It's a little weird.
the fact in the matter is, if you're known at that degree, you can allow yourself a really, really high amount of very, very bad things, and people will still defend you. So, yeah.
It's not even a little weird. It's actually big weird. So that's just how it is. But you get the point. At the end of the day, it's just frustrating that you have people outside of the anime community come through and tell you like, hey, this thing right here is a bad move and it's a bad idea. And this thing sucks right now, right? This isn't a way that the industry should go, right? And even if it's not necessarily just talking about, you know, the grand scope of anime, you at least understand that there is some people out there, like for example with the Katakawa stuff, you know, Maximilian Dude also was like mainly talking about the gaming side of things, but even he was like, there's no real benefit to getting this deal, right? There's no really big benefit for gamers to be looking at this deal, honestly. You know, we're not getting much out of it, which is true. But at the very same time, I can kind of somewhat understand why Katakawa is doing it, because also Tencent is trying to buy them, which, as you know, is a not Japanese company, but a Chinese company. And obviously, if they get their hands on that, most likely a lot of the stuff that is being produced is going to get censored to high heaven and not going to be in the best position. But if you get like a Japanese hand in it, like Sony Japan, if it was only Sony Japan, I wouldn't have a problem. But when it comes down to it, that's why they're also trying to get their hands into, you know, Sony to let them get it, because obviously they won't have to censor hard to tell. But then here comes bitch ass Sony America, so who really knows? It's just a messy situation no matter who really gets Katakawa, whether they get sold off or whether they just try to stay there themselves or whatever the case it may be, right? Again, the whole point is just, I hate the fact that people really only look at the parts of the problem that they want to look at, and then they choose to ignore the whole damn circus of what's going on, right? Anime is getting censored by America, and they're trying to dumb down what anime is so everybody can be a part of it. Here's the shocker lesson of the day, kids. Not every piece of media and not every little thing is going to be for you. Like,
That's correct.
That's just...
And I agree wholeheartedly with on this one. Yes, not everything is for you. Not everything is for everyone. And there are some things that a lot of people like, but even, let's just say, Souls games. You may think that something that's so brutally freaking, well, hard to play wouldn't catch a big audience, but it does. And it's still not for everyone. And even now, people want to change it to have a freaking easy mode. And the entire thing about Souls games is, you get the skill, or you get the knowledge, and just beat it. That's the entire thing about Souls game. If you take this away, it loses its heart.
The fact. Not every single time you watch a damn anime comes through, it's not going to be for you. That's why... back then at least, people would just call you weird and kind of leave it at that. Nowadays it's like, oh, you gotta get sent a death threat or two, or you gotta get doxxed for information or so, if you like this certain thing, and all that type of stuff. This is not the anime community I grew up with when it comes down to it. I remember getting my ass bullied hard as hell. In fact, I miss them damn days, because at least we had the shit that we had, and it wasn't as it is now. Which is wild to say, but at the very...
Yeah, I mean, I am not the guy who would advocate for bullying per se, but on an extremely small scale, it actually hardens people up to a certain degree. I'm not saying directly bullying, because you can harden up people way differently, but as I said, I'm not for bullying, but I know there can come a lot of good in it if it's an extremely small amount. If it's a healthy you against me thing.
Same time, it is true. So that's just, again, how it is, you know? You can't necessarily just sit here and just point out something like a ninja scroll or whatever, and then get mad that ninja scroll exists because it doesn't cater to you. And that's kind of like the whole big ass problem. That's been the problem for like a few years now, if not like the whole 10, 14 years, honestly. The fact that everybody wants to be included in stuff. Shit just not made for you. That's just how it is. Can't necessarily. I think I saw like a whole tweet.
14 years. Mate. You're late to the party, aren't you? This entire shit already goes on for way over 20. The signs were there way over 20 years ago. But I was a younger man at this point, so... And yet, that's the thing that I am talking about. Even you saying, hey, you don't care about it, blah, 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 blah. 14 years? No, you're late to the party, mate. The party was well in... Like, it maybe just started, but it was there. The party was there. And it grew. And now we're at a point where it slowly dies down. So... You came a bit late, but it's fine. You're there. That's the only
where
thing
somebody was like, yo, you can't have characters going through assault, a certain type of assault, you know? But, bitch, yes, you can. They're fictional characters. You can do whatever the hell you want to. It doesn't matter. Do what you want. Why do I have to basically be investigated by the internet police over my decision of what I want to do with my own characters and things of the sort like that? Again, too much of this shit. Too much of people trying to get into every little thing and trying to, you know, involve themselves in everything because it doesn't work out in the end.
Micromanaging.
Right? That's why the gaming space sucks right now. That's why the anime community sucks right now. It's why a lot of these bigger content creators of the anime side, because they don't want to gatekeep and, you know, let everybody in, why they kind of suck right now. Because it's just not necessarily good. It's not prime shit anymore. Now it's just mid shit. That's essentially what it is. Like, for another example, Dandadan's gonna come out with an episode next week that pretty much is gonna make everybody either mad as hell or either essentially be screeching what the hell in all this sort of ways and stuff, when in reality, you know, people that like Dandadan and stuff like that, they should just be having a chill time watching the show. They should be like, dang, that's crazy that's happened, and just nothing else, right? But now we gotta worry about, oh no, what other people are gonna say. Bitch, it's a show with fictional characters. Let people cook. Let them do what they want to. Even if the meal was bad, still let it cook, because you're gonna get more episodes any damn way. And it's so weird how people are, you know? Again, I just blame that on the soft side of society. So my whole point of this entire discussion, hopefully I can end this time because I've been talking for too dang long. But when it comes down to it though, it's just the fact that you have all this stuff that's happening to the anime industry. There's already a lot of problems, whether it's animators not getting paid enough, and the censorship stuff, and just the crazy work hours that go into these shows and things of the sort like that. There's a lot of problems. But when you see a issue, don't wait. Call that shit out. Even if it could be something that ruins a reputation or burn a bridge or so. Would you rather let something die, the thing that you enjoy die? Or would you rather just, you know, call it out and hopefully hope for the best?
He's talking about something very, very difficult again. Because you still have to see this in a way that, from a different perspective. Let's just say you're correct. So why would you want to let something mention, like you want to see something mentioned? Let me collect my words, because I have to be a bit precise about this. As you said, the words that you said, why wouldn't your a bridgelet be burnt, a situation be burnt, some kind of thing that could positively influence you, just lose it? If your entire livelihood depends on shutting up on this, a lot of people will shut up about this. And it would be selfish of you to demand from someone that he talks about this thing while the person is losing their entire livelihood. Now, not everyone does this. There are maybe a handful of people that are in this situation, but there are people that you just cannot demand this, in my opinion. If, let's just say it was me, I don't care about it. This is a hobby for me right now. If I start making money, even better. And if I start making money with this, the first thing I'm gonna do, invest in doing this channel better, so it's a bit more like just maybe hire someone. The model, I still have to repair my model, by the way, so it moves and find this out, but the time just isn't on my let's just say it's not in my favor right now, and still for me that's irrelevant. For someone whose livelihood depends on it, they will think about it 3 times. And even I, not everybody has the, let's just say, luxury I have, because I actually already, I bought a handful of buildings, like not a lot. It's enough to just sustain me if I should fall out of grace, be it in any kind of way, and just live, just survive. That's enough for now. And of course, I'm gonna do it in a way that the one thing sustains the other until the other can sustain the main thing. And yeah, landlording basically. Yes, I'm doing this. And I want to make the landlording to be a passive income at some point. Because right now it's not possible. I am an immigrant and just went in here with 0, so of course I have to build up from absolute 0. And if this channel throws something out, I'm gonna invest in both things, or to a certain degree, so I can sustain both, with the target in mind of that I can talk about shit. No matter who comes, who goes, like who I'm gonna insult, I don't care. So I can talk about this. And not everybody's in this situation.
That things will get fixed. Because I'm hoping for the best that things get fixed if I call it out. Like, that's the whole point, you know? That's just how it is. If a bridge gets burnt or two, then it is what it is. Yeah. I know a lot of people don't like that because money and, you know, their reputation online and things of sort like that. But at the very same time, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Sometimes you gotta call shit out when it needs to be called out. That's why there have been so many trash ass content creators, because no one been calling them out, especially when they're friends, quote unquote, with the person. Like, a good friend doesn't let people just do the wild and shit that they do, especially within recent memory and recent years and time. So there's also that. But that's really what I want to say for this one. This has been just an absolutely
good. So closing this, it's fine. Acolytes. I'm gonna be honest, I enjoy his view. It's interesting, and there are some points that I of course disagree, as 99.99% of the time. But hey, good stuff. Really good stuff. But as it is, Acolytes, good night.